Ground with Johnny Wakeland. I'm not neutral what the ground is. Anybody can come on here and say anything they like and debate with me. I'm happy to have them engage. Ukraine's being pummeled. They're into their sixth day, and the Russian army is being completely humiliated by a bunch of ragtag, non-professional soldiers. They got women, they got children. Everybody's picking up a rifle to fight the Russians. Vladimir Putin is clearly miscalculated, and again. This actually could wind up helping the Biden presidency, and I don't mind saying that. I mean, I think he's done for in 2020, in the 2022 midterms, but, you know, I don't think there's really anything different that Trump would have done, except perhaps be more bellicose, make more threats, and that might have made a difference. From looking at the Russian troop movements, my general impression remains that I still think they're going to try and carve the country in half along the Dnieper River and probably take all or part of Kyiv, and particularly the eastern bank, everything east of the Dnieper River, however you pronounce it. So, to me, that would tend to satisfy Russia's old claims to the old historic boundaries of the original Russian Empire and the original birthplace of the Kievan Rus. Okay? But at the end of the day, whatever happens in Ukraine, if there's any chunk left standing not occupied by Russia, it's a massive failure, because it's going to do exactly what happened in Berlin after the partition of Germany, right? What happened to Germany? It's going to be exactly what happened to Germany after World War II, right? Most people are too young to remember this. I was a kid. I remember, okay? Just so you know, Russia and the socialist half of Germany was like Cuba now. You know, stray dogs running around, no money, no cars, everything's shitty, couldn't buy anything, can't buy a nice watch, can't buy anything. It was just going to be an economic third world wasteland. That's what happened to the eastern part of Germany when it was in Russian hands. And that's what's going to be the case in Ukraine. You're going to have one half bawling out, partying, part of Europe, getting rich, hopefully getting less corrupt, right? As European law and order tends to sort of infiltrate and customs. And the eastern part of Ukraine is going to be an economic basket case cut off by the West. They're basically going to be part of Russia, and Russia's just going to be China's gas station. So that's the future. This is a huge miscalculation by Putin, no matter how he plays it. No matter how he plays it. He's already screwed himself. No matter what he does to Ukraine. Nobody doubted that Russians were tough guys. But where can they go from here? Are they going to go into the Baltics? I don't think so. Are they going to go into Poland? I don't think so. Okay, so now what? They're just going to run around making trouble in their former neighboring republics? Okay, I mean, you know, we're watching people called Petrov kill people called Petrov. Pass the popcorn. As for Donald Trump, he's sitting back loving it. He looks good no matter what happens with all of this. Polls are showing that he's still the by far odds-on favorite for the nomination for 2024. I think he's like 60. He got 60% of the vote. It fluctuates up and down between 70 and 60, but it's always in there. It's over. None of those people are changing their mind. It's not like there's going to be some new revelation about something Trump said or did that's going to suddenly turn around his poll numbers and make him sink like a 10. None of the people that currently have him at 60% for the straw poll at CPAC to be the nominee, none of those people would change their mind on Trump. It doesn't matter if he has a side family somewhere. It doesn't matter if he's a heroin user. It would not matter. And that's the frustrating thing for the left and for the media. It's all priced in with Trump. Trump isn't a cause, he's a symptom. The population is pissed off. Trump is a vehicle for their frustration, but it doesn't need to be Trump. And the notion that these people seem to have that they've lost control of the media because a charismatic guy like Trump has come up and changed the body politic. No. We've always thought these things. Everybody's always had Trump-like opinions. Trump is tapping into the public opinion, not the other way around. That's really hard for liberals to get, because they've always had the illusion that everybody reflected their opinions. No, they just controlled the means of disseminating public opinion through the media. But behind the scenes, lurking behind the scenes, is like the other massive silent majority that thinks the people in the media are a bunch of flaky journalists. And now it's happening. So populism is spreading all over the world. It's spreading all over America. Now it's spreading to Canada. We saw the trucker protest. And what we need now is for Canadian institutions to change. Okay? Trump is not just the leader of populism in the United States anymore. He is a leader of populism here because he represents an idea. And I'm saying to all Canadians, we have a right to have the same level of freedoms as Americans have, not one bit less. Throw out this idea that Canada is somehow different than the United States when it comes to our rights and privileges, that we have less, that we have a more British system. We don't have to. It doesn't have to stay static. We have many rights and things that the British don't have. We're not rights. We have documents. The British do not have a constitution. There is no constitutional document in Britain. They have the Magna Carta. They have some other things. But they don't have a written charter like we have. So this suggestion that our institutions are special or different from America and therefore we have different rights. No. We are born with a right to have access to the media. We are born with a right to have our opinions, pro or con, against COVID, against vaccines, heard by the public. Those are rights that we have. And nobody has a right to tell us we can't speak to other people about what we think about COVID or vaccines or anything else. And all the people at Twitter, at Facebook, who are trying to control what we say and prevent us from saying things are breaching our human rights. We don't have to be correct in someone's opinion. It can be misinformation. It's all within our rights. Nobody has a right to stop anybody from talking. And let the public decide whose voice they think is more credible. Because I've been watching Fox now for a number of years. And like everyone else, I used to think Fox was rubbish. But over time, I came to realize, incredibly, Fox is closer to the truth than anybody else. Is that so hard to believe? Right? The government is giving millions of dollars, billions of the CBC, millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to the media in Canada. They're paying them salary support. The government is paying the increased salaries of journalists. Of course, they're not going to gainsay whatever the government has to say about COVID or anything else. We need to eliminate all government subsidy of the legacy media. We need to demand that the legacy media provide airtime to populists. Pro-Trump, conservative populists deserve some time in primetime news broadcasts on legacy Canadian media to get their views out. So it is not simply a message that we hear from elites from Montreal and Toronto, whatever they want to fill our heads with. People like Maxime Bernier or Donald Trump's associates should have a right to speak to Canadians in prime time on our legacy media. And that will never happen. They're holding us hostage and preventing those views from getting out on purpose. They're banning them on social media and they're blocking them on the legacy media. And as we saw from polls showing that 1/3 of Canadians support the truckers, 1/3 of the country doesn't agree with the legacy media. So there's 1/3 of Canadians, and that's now in the context of a media that suppresses any contrarian views about COVID or anything else. But if we had a free media, and if, for example, we had a Fox News Canada or a Sky News Canada that could broadcast to the Canadians for free, as CBC does, then people would hear the message. Why don't we have a Fox News Canada? Why don't we have Sky News? Why is it that America has it, Britain has it, Australia has it, we don't have any kind of a populist channel? It's not because we're different. It's not because our media is downstream from our culture and our culture is more progressive. That's the lie. The reason we don't have it is the Liberals passed an order in council blocking any foreign party, any non-Canadian, from owning a broadcast license or through derivatively owning a broadcast license in Canada. So it is illegal for Fox to operate here. It is illegal for Sky News to get a license in Canada. And that is the only reason that America has had a resurgence of populism, is because the Rupert family in Australia was able to start Fox News and bring a contrary point of view. Now, what's happened? Fox News is now the most popular broadcast in America. So when Fox News started, it was considered rash, it was considered propaganda, it was these Australians coming in with this infotainment product. Yet it is now the most trusted network in America. And the reason it's trusted is because its predictions come true. Its predictions in the 2016 and 2020 elections came true. It was the most accurate. It was the closest to what actually happened. In 2016, they said it was a toss-up. It wasn't a 90% Hillary victory. All the other stations, including all the Canadian stations, said that Hillary was a shoo-in. They were lying. They were basing it on fake polls, and they knew it was fake polls. Media companies commission these polls. They sample them carefully. They make sure they create them in a way that creates momentum for their preferred candidates. And election after election, you can see, and it's the same in Canada. I once did a study where I mathematically looked at the spread between the last polls, so taking the last polls, the Globe and Mail, all the Ipsos read, all the different polls that we had, going back over the last 30, 40 years. This was all during the years when Reform Party and the Canadian Alliance and others were rising up in Canada and becoming a thing. And I figured out mathematically that there was always between a 7 and 14% spread between the most right-wing contender, which would be the Reform Party or the Canadian Alliance, and the Liberal Party. And that spread, interestingly, was always, over like 6 elections, always in favor of the Liberal Party and against whoever was the most right-wing party. And before Reform, it was the Conservatives, who were less right-wing, but they were still the most right-wing option. So the media in Canada, the polls that we've been seeing on the eve of elections for the last 30 years have always uniformly favored the Liberals by a 7 to 14% misrepresentation in favor of the Liberals. Misrepresentation. In other words, the polls had the Liberals higher than they really were on the eve of the election. Going back 30 years, multiple elections, check it yourself. Go do the math, get a calculator. Figure out the actual election day results for Reform, for Alliance, for Conservatives, and then for the Liberals. And watch. It always favors the Liberals over the Conservatives, and over the NDP for that matter. So pay attention to what's going on. That's how you base which media outlet is truth and which is propaganda. The one that has the most accurate election polling would seem to be the one that is not at least trying to push poll people. Because when you run polls up on the eve of an election, it tends to push people to vote for that party. It's called push polling. It's called, people like to vote for a winner. If they think a party's ahead, they go, I'm going to vote for, they take their guidance from what the herd is doing. So if the herd is voting for Hillary 90%, as the media swore it was, people tend to vote for Hillary. The truth is, it was a nail-biter, neck and neck, with Donald Trump coming up fast, catching up to Hillary, neck and neck. And if people have been told that and saw that momentum, they say, oh, you know what? There's a bandwagon. People are switching to Trump. The herd is switching to Trump. What do they know that I don't know? I'm going to switch to Trump. That's why the polls are done the way they are. That's why they're deliberately misleading, and why Fox News, sadly for those of you who don't believe it, is closer to the truth than the rest of them. We need a populist channel here. We need to call for the immediate ending of that order in council and changing the rules of the CRTC. I got to give credit to Mr. O'Toole in the last round. He's no longer the leader of the Conservatives, but he was going to get rid of the CRTC. This has to go. We need to allow Sky News and Fox News to broadcast here with a Canadian broadcast with proper production values. Not like we had Sun News TV, but that was sort of more tabloidy kind of stuff, infotainment, whatever you want to call it. It was a mixture of journalism and polemics, and I think it didn't get the weight and credibility in the Canadian context that it deserved. But I will say this. In addition to demanding that the Liberals remove that order in council so that other broadcasters in the English-speaking world can invest immediately in channels that will push back against Trudeau and his fascism, we also need immediate decisions from every broadcaster in Canada. This is Bell Globe Media and all the cable channels, Rogers, Bell, all of them, must immediately start carrying Sky News and Fox News right now on mandatory carry for all cable packages. No more making people have to pay money to hear criticism of Trudeau and get the milquetoast, mamby-pamby soft sell that we get from Global and CTV and the rest. Okay? We need Canadians to be able to hear Tucker Carlson shitting on Trudeau every single day on their nightly broadcast for free. Not a paid subscription. People shouldn't have to pay to hear the truth. Again, to Neutral Ground with Johnny Wakelin. And remember, we need Fox News and Sky News right now. End of the week. We need to protest outside of Bell. We want Rogers and Bell to make Fox and Sky mandatory carry as of this Friday. You want to have the truckers surround something? Surround Bell. Surround Rogers. We need populism mandatory carry. People shouldn't have to pay extra for the truth.